So now that we've cut down all of our paper and it's sized to either our found object covers, or we've cut it down to the size that we want to make our book if we're making covers from scratch, we're going to create sections of pages that we call signatures. So these are folded groupings of paper. So if you look at the spine of this book, you can see how the threads go into these little folds. So each one of these folds is a signature that's made up of probably 3 to 4 individual pieces of paper that have just been folded together. So in our cut down sheets, we also just want to notice the grain. We can double check to make sure we've cut things down correctly. So again, I'm just gonna roll my sheets and make sure that it feels like the grain is in the direction that I want it to be, which is the shorter direction. It's important to have our paper be in the correct grain direction because it not only helps us fold them more easily, this is especially important for thicker papers that might be a little bit more difficult to fold as it is, but regardless of the thickness of our paper, it'll help us to fold more easily. But also, once we assemble the entire book, it's going to make the finished book lie flatter, and it's going to help the paper to fluctuate so that when it's humid, the paper might expand and contract a little bit. So it's going to kind of help the book to retain its shape and its integrity over time, and it's going to help the pages to turn in a way that feels a little bit more like flexible and natural. So these are all reasons why it's really important to pay attention to the grain of your paper. The way we determine how many sheets of paper go into a signature depends on how thick our individual pieces of paper are. So this is a very lightweight paper, almost as light as like printer paper might be, so that's pretty lightweight. So I would probably fold together like 4 sheets of these. If you had a heavier weight paper, like say you were using watercolor paper and it was really thick, you might only want to put 2 sheets together. So to figure that out, I'm kind of guessing, maybe based a little bit on my experience with working with that paper, but also I'm just going to take some sheets of paper and fold them together and see how they feel. I like to take my 4 pieces of paper and fold them together at the same time. To do this, I'm gonna just jog them together to make sure that they're as even as possible. And then I'm going to place my thumbs underneath the paper and the rest of my fingers on top. So I'm kind of using these fingers to hold everything down and in place while I fold over, and I match up what will become the 4 edges of our book. And the 4 edge just refers to the edge of the book that opens. So I'm just like kind of matching this up right now. And then once I get it in the placement that I like, I'm going to again continue holding this all in place with my 3 fingers here. And then I'm going to use my thumbs and I'm going to slide those back to the fold and crease with my thumbs. I'm going to use my bone folder or whatever folding tool you have, you can use. And I'm going to use the edge of this tool. So I'm using like the long edge and I'm pressing and sliding that across the fold. And that's just going to help crease this even better. So that's 1 signature made up of 4 individual sheets of my book paper. I'm just gonna set that one aside. You can also fold individual sheets and you would fold it in the same way. So again, I'm just putting my thumbs underneath the page and using my other 3 fingers to hold it down, line up the corners and the foredge, slide my thumbs back to fold, and then crease with my bone folder. So you can fold individual sheets, and when we have just 1 sheet of folded paper, we call the folio. And so we can fold a few pieces like that, just 1 at a time. And then we're going to nest them together. So I'm nesting my 4 pieces, my 4 individual folios together to make 1 signature. So whichever one of those methods you feel comfortable doing, you can try them both and see what you like. I like folding all of my sheets at once because I feel like the pages nest together in a more seamless way. But I think both ways work perfectly fine. Now, once I have these folded together, I'm just going to kind of evaluate like how it feels. So I can tell that 4 sheets of this is probably right, because when the fold is creased and I'm laying it flat on the table, it doesn't want to pop open. It doesn't seem like the pages are pushing each other out in this direction. They're staying pretty much together. So that feels really good. If there were too many sheets, we would either see the top pages opening, like wanting to kind of stand up like that, or it would seem like the inner pages just didn't want to stay put and they kept trying to slide out. And so that's an indication that maybe you want to try to remove one sheet at a time until it feels better. And if you had too few sheets, you know, like if I had only tried to put 2 of these together, it might just feel really thin. And so I would know that I could probably try to put another 1 or 2 sheets in there. So you can kind of test in that way, depending on what your individual paper is, to figure out how many sheets you should be using to create your signatures. Now I'm just going to fold all of my paper in sets of 4 to make my signatures. So once we have all of our signatures together, so I've made 6 signatures. I started with 24 sheets of paper and made signatures of 4 individual sheets each to come up with 6 signatures. So that'll give me 48 pages in my book. You can have more or less signatures, especially if you're using a thicker paper and you had to, you know, maybe only use 2 sheets per signature, but you still wanted a book with like 48 pages, then you're gonna have like 12 signatures, and that's fine. We're gonna want to press these under weight to help flatten the pages even more, which will just make everything go together much more nicely, and it'll help our finished book look even better. So once I have all of my signatures folded, I'm just going to jog these to the spine side, or to the fold side, which will become our spine. And I'm going to lay it nice and flat on the table, trying to make sure that my folds stay aligned. If you have a board, you can place a board on top, and if not, that's okay, as long as you have something flat like a book. And then you're going to put a weight on top of it. But I'm going to use my trusty art history book, place that right down on top, and then I'm just going to press this for a few hours or even up to overnight.